Wisdom says, all right, Republicans will pick up seats in the House, and they may lose the Senate. They may lose the House. They'll pick up seats in the Senate. And I'm thinking, just imagine for a moment, all the media, if Republicans win it all. I'm just, I'm an optimistic guy. I don't know what's going to happen. I can take victory or defeat. I can't even imagine how unhinged they will be. It's worth the price of admission just for that.
Well, Sean, they'll be wearing what I'm wearing, black. Remember the day after the election, it was all black. They all wore black. They looked like they lost their best friends. I'm like, it's an election. The country goes one way, then it goes another way, then we figure it out. It's going to be okay.
I want to win
Everybody
this one.
Take a breath.
Just to see their faces.
Oh, no.
By the way, where are you?
I'm in Phoenix, Sean, because we're covering this McSally race out here.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
Cinema late surge. I got planes over me. It's like, this is fun. We're gonna hit all.
Well, I got to tell you one thing. I don't want to take your time. But by the way, according to Cinema, you're among crazy people in a Lindsay Lohan way, the meth lab of democracy. Oh, and by the way, it's okay to fight with the Taliban. Good luck to Kristen Cinema.
God bless her. Those old tapes are the gifts that keep on giving here in Arizona. So I think the people are taking a second, third, and fourth look at Ms. Cinema. So I think it's going to go a good way for McSally. But we're covering this.
I'm glad you're out there. We'll be watching all night. Have a great show.
All right, Sean. Thanks so much. Great show. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle live from the border state of Arizona tonight. We have so much to get through. I don't think an hour is going to do it, but we have to fit it into an hour, so stay right there. States like this are not just front and center ahead of next Tuesday's midterms because of a close Senate race. They resonate nationally because the issue of immigration has come to the fore once again. Since President Trump has refocused attention on the issue, of course he's being labeled a racist. You just heard him refer to that in his speech tonight in Missouri. And tonight, a Hispanic Border Patrol agent and a family member of a victim of illegal immigrant crime will be here to react. Plus, where the polls stand now and what ads are actually working the most with voters. The men who know the answers, Tom Bevan, Doug Schoen, and Frank Luntz are all here. I cannot wait to talk to them. Everything you need to know in these waning days of this midterms. And Democrats, by the way, have long decried dark money and dirty tricks in politics. They're always bemoaning that. Well, we're going to lay out tonight how they are shamelessly engaging in both this midterm season. It's off the charts. But first, race to the bottom. That's the focus of tonight's angle. The better Donald Trump does among African-American voters, the more race-obsessed the Democrats and their shameless media enablers become. When young African-American leaders were recently invited to the White House by the president, they were instantly derided by the left.
It was not a summit. It was a Make America Great rally. They used some young blacks as props, which really is an insult to them.
Oh, insult to them, Al, really? Aren't those racist sentiments, by the way? Isn't it wrong to lump people into political camps based on their skin color? Or believe that only authentic African Americans are the ones who despise Donald Trump? And I thought stereotyping people based on their skin color was the definition of racism. And why should a reverend be speaking in these terms at all, by the way? I think what's going on here is they're worried about their prospects. And so now the left are engaged in a coordinated effort to brand Donald Trump as a racist.
We have a white nationalist president who's a threat to American democracy.
People know when you say nationalism, smart people know what that is a dog whistle for.
Well, let me ask you,
and it's a wink and a nod to white nationalism.
I know it sounds cynical, but this man doubled down after 11 beautiful people were shot and killed while worshiping. For what? Some ideal of whiteness that Donald Trump represents and spews out of his mouth every single day.
Yeah, that's what Donald Trump thinks about every morning when he wakes up. Whiteness. Come on, you're better than that. And then there's this tiresome claim.
Trump knows the only way that they can energize their base is through fear.
I thought Sarah Silverman was supposed to be funny. Oh, well, oh really? Then talk about fear-mongering. What was Oprah Winfrey doing in Atlanta today if not fear-mongering?
I'm here today because of the men and because of the women who were lynched, who were humiliated, who were discriminated against, who were suppressed, who were repressed and oppressed, and I refuse to let their sacrifices be in vain.
Gotta hand it to Oprah. She's a great speaker. But I kind of liked her better when she was giving away Toyotas and refrigerators. To try to tie the candidacy of the Georgia Republican gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp to the scourge of racism and even lynchings? Come on, Oprah. It's dehumanizing. It's completely baseless. It's totally cruel. And again, I say, you're much better than that. And you're much bigger than that. And I'd also say this to Oprah Winfrey. How is this living our best life now? This kind of broad brush race baiting desensitizes us to the real racists out there who should be condemned and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law when they commit heinous crimes and use violence to hurt and maim people of a different race. By the way, what did Kemp ever do aside from running against a black opponent? Nothing. For a taste of true racial obsession and outright racism, here are what a few prominent Democrats said this week that didn't get all that much attention.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and you feel free.
Oh, I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kick them in the shins, essentially, start to get to that kind of political?
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't.
Our state director is Indian American, but he does an amazing job. Our director of all constituent services, she's African American, but she does an even more incredible job than you could ever imagine.
I still can't believe that comment. All right. Well, look, come on. It's all race all the time. And in Florida, Project Veritas caught a staffer of a Democratic candidate for governor, Andrew Gillum, saying this about Gillum's promises and about the state itself.
Fairy tales in the modern day begin with once I am elected.
This is a bad state.
Okay.
It's a cracker state.
Okay, now imagine if a conservative staffer for Ron DeSantis was saying something similar. I mean, it would be wall-to-wall news day and night, and he and the candidate would be labeled as racists. And a pathetic and a transparent double standard is what we just showed you, because you know they're really not going to cover that. That's just some fringe guy making a video. Democrats like Gillum and Stacey Abrams in Georgia are featured in endless puff pieces across all media. And most of these pieces focus on their race as their biggest selling point for the candidacy. Okay, I assume they're about more than that. They have views and they have ideas, but it's always about race and race for the most part alone. But black Republicans like John James running for Senate in Michigan, or Omar Kudrat, a Muslim Republican running for Congress for California's 52nd district, they're hardly covered at all. So I guess race doesn't matter if you're a Republican. It's not historic at all. The reason, again, for this leftist race baiting, Trump's policies are working for African Americans, and the results are now beginning to come in. Democrats sense it. They're losing their grip on the black community. Black unemployment is down, black entrepreneurism is up, and the polls are moving. Check out this new Harvard-Harris poll. A year ago, President Trump's approval rating among black Americans was a paltry 10%. Today, it's almost triple at 29%. And look at this. A year ago, only 17% of African Americans approved of the president's handling of the economy. Today, 40% approve of his economic prowess. And this may be the most revealing number of all on the issue of immigration. 15% of black Americans liked Trump's approach last year. Not great. This year, again, it's almost doubled. 29% approve of Trump's immigration stance. My friends, you might not like everything he tweets. I get that. But Donald Trump is standing up for all Americans. He doesn't care about your skin color. He doesn't care about your ethnicity or what religion you practice. He's about America. And that is a good thing. And back to Obama for a moment, because he's out there campaigning all across the country. aside from his incredible example of being, he's a great father and himself a historic figure, you have to ask this question: what did Obama actually do, substantively do, for black America? African American wages during his 8 years were flat. Obamacare was a complete and total disaster. And he did little to protect the black community from the competition of cheap, illegal labor. Hardly talked about it. Do not let the race hucksters convince you to embrace the failure of the past. For the Democrats, this is not about protecting minority groups. It's about regaining raw political power, even if it means turning American against American and stopping the economic revival we've seen, the best I think we've seen in decades, across all races and all ethnicities. And that's the angle. Joining me to discuss, Kimberly Strassel is a Fox News contributor and editorial board member of the Wall Street Journal, and Niger Innis is a civil rights activist and leader of the Congress for Racial Equality. And Jonathan Harris is a liberal analyst. Niger, let's start with you. How effective do you see these strategies in winning over African-American voters in the midterms? Let's start with what the Democrats are doing. Trump's a white nationalist. He cares about whiteness. He's a racist, embracing racist policies, the drumbeat across all media today.
Well, in the past, it's been what they go to in their playbook. They can't talk about the economy and the record low black and brown unemployment. I mean, historic lows since we've been recording these numbers. So they go to their dirty bag of tricks and they pull out the race card. You know, I've been calling it for close to a couple of decades, and my father, the great Roy Innis, before me, you know, he called it racial hustling. And the problem is, and the reason we take this posture is we come from a civil rights organization, the Congress of Racial Equality, where, you know, you want to talk about real voter suppression. You know, 3 of our boys, Sherner, Cheney, and Goodman, that became martyrs to the civil rights revolution, were murdered. They lost their lives. They didn't have to show an ID. They lost their lives. They were murdered by the Klan in Mississippi for registering people to vote. You know, after Reconstruction.
But Niger, to hear what's happening today, Niger, and we've made no progress. There's really almost no progress because Donald Trump is president.
That's an absurdity, and it spits on the grave of all those brave whites and blacks that gave their lives for the Civil Rights Revolution, for the Civil War, 100 years before then. And it really sends the wrong message to young blacks, young whites, Hispanics, Asian Americans, that they actually live in a country because of our Constitution and because of the passages of the 14th Amendment that is the freest, liberty-embracing country, not only in the world, but in the history of the world.
Jonathan, we have some interesting races across the country. I know you disagree with what Niger just said, but right. Stacey Abrams may be elected the next governor of Georgia. You have Andrew Gillum in Florida. Barack Obama was a 2-term president, very popular, went out very popular. So for Oprah to come to Georgia, and she's a larger-than-life figure, and she's an incredible person, done a lot for a lot of people, but she comes to Georgia, and she basically acts like no progress has been made, and we're on the verge of having this guy, Brian Kemp, oversee mass lynchings of African Americans. How is that a positive engagement on politics?
No, I think what she's doing is acknowledging the fact that Brian Kemp is suppressing over 53,000 votes, and that's according to the AP, in Georgia, and that this is a long history of suppressing votes in the South by conservatives, by Republicans. In 2005, the head of the RNC actually apologized for embracing what he called the Southern, not what he called, but everyone calls the Southern strategy, where the Republican Party embraced racism from white people to get votes. That was what the Republican Party tried to do. That's where this all comes from, because that was their strategy. And though he apologized for it in 2005, there's no proof that they've stopped doing it. Cue Donald Trump calling Mexicans murderers and rapists.
Okay, well, let's stay on Georgia for a moment, because I think this is really important for people to understand what did happen in Georgia. When voter registrations, and Kim, I know you know about this, you've written about this, the integrity of the vote does need to be maintained. And duplicate registrations, people registered in multiple counties, registrations whose names are not quite matching, states all across the country end up cleaning up their rolls. They do it. They've always done it. But this has turned into a racial football in Georgia, Kimberly. And, you heard what Jonathan said. 53,000 have been purged from the rolls or have been suppressed. Is that really what's been happening? And is Brian Kemp the culprit?
No, because we've been cleaning up the voter rolls. It's a routine thing that happens out in states year after year, and you're not seeing it happen just to minorities. People of all races and all distinctions occasionally are pulled off, and sometimes it's an error. Often it's just to update the list. But look, the rhetoric here has changed so much this election, Laura. We used to talk of the complaint used to be, well, tough voter ID laws. That's now moved to claims of outright suppression. You used to claim that Republicans had latent racism. Now you're outright calling them white nationalists. And there's an electoral strategy behind this. And it is this fact. Look, you cited that poll. Democrats continue to argue every time there's a poll that says that African Americans are supporting Donald Trump in greater numbers. But even they will admit that it has shifted a little bit. And in a race this close, where 2 or 3 points could be the deciding factor, to have African Americans come out and vote for Republicans, or worse in their mind, simply not come out and vote for Democrats, stay home because they're not animated against Donald Trump, that could be the difference between victory and defeat. And that is why you see this rhetoric reaching such extraordinary levels.
Yeah, both sides are accusing the other of ramping up rhetoric for political reasons. Nigel, I want to go to what Vice President Pence said today, kind of reacting to what Oprah did in Georgia. Let's watch.
I'd like to remind Stacey and Oprah and Will Ferrell, I'm kind of a big deal too. This ain't Hollywood. This is Georgia.
How much star power? I mean, Oprah did have an effect in 2008. She really turned out some voters for Barack Obama. There's no doubt about it. She's still very popular. But the economy now is doing well. The economy in 2008 wasn't doing all that great. But now the economy in Georgia's picked up. Wages have gone up. The great economic statistics that just came out yesterday with rising wages. So, Niger, does the celebrity factor work here, even using the race card?
I suppose there'll be some degree of an impact. There's no doubt that Oprah Winfrey is very popular, but I actually think that come next Tuesday, there's actually going to be a surprise. I don't know that Republicans are going to hold on to the House, but I think they're going to do a lot better, particularly in the minority community, than people are polling right now. I think, you often hear of like there's a hidden Trump vote that could move the vote polls 3 to 5%. It's not just whites, that are afraid to tell their pollster that they're voting for Donald Trump. There's a reign of terror in minority precincts and among sometimes women activists, that punish people that are supposed to vote afraid. Democrat if you are black,
people are afraid.
Hispanic,
Jonathan,
or Asian.
I got to ask Jonathan. Yeah, we're out of time, but Jonathan, don't you agree that it's not a good thing if people are afraid to wear a T-shirt supporting whether it's the Democrat or the Republican? And now you have people who are literally afraid to wear a MAGA hat. They're afraid because they're going to be called a racist.
I don't
Is
think
that a good thing?
I don't think they should be afraid. They should be embarrassed, however.
Okay, well, they're afraid because, the charge of racism is potent.
No, there should be no fear from expressing your political opinions, but when you're embracing a person and a party who openly advocates for racism, calling themselves a nationalist and things like that, you should be embarrassed to embrace that.
Byron, if everything is racism, Brother Byron, if everything is racist, then nothing is racist.
Not everything is racism.
My friend Deneen Borelli says, you can't throw out the racism card forever and think that at some point it's going to lose gravity.
When someone is being racist, calling them a racist is not pulling the race card. That's not what that is.
Well, the record low unemployment for African Americans, that's definitely not racist. I'll tell you that.
Obama cut it in half.
Out of time, but progressive, the wages have finally gone up, didn't under Obama. Kimberly, real quick, because we're almost out of time. Progressivism, does it, even if they take the House, do progressive policies end up showing us something new this time? Georgia, maybe Florida, new economic boom under liberal policies?
Yeah, it's not been noticed, but actually there are very few real progressive candidates out there who are likely to win. Democrats have, in fact, been keeping a lid on them. Most of the races we've seen have been Democrats trying to position themselves as centrists or moderates. Look out at Arizona. And to the extent that the progressive had all the airtime in the Kavanaugh hearing, they're the ones that actually blew the potential for a blue wave. So that is not what's winning it for Democrats this year.
Yeah, I don't think most of them want to talk about the caravan. They don't want to talk about that issue at all because they know it doesn't poll well among some constituencies. Great conversation, guys. Thanks so much. The reaction, by the way, to Trump's moves on immigration over the last week have resulted in a common refrain from the left. Oh, what did we hear? Oh, what is it? Racist. A Hispanic border agent and the aunt of a police officer killed by a twice deported illegal alien tells us why they're offended. Stay there. Broadcast from the border state of Arizona, where immigration will play front and center in the Senate race. Very tight tonight between Republican Martha McSally and Democrat Kristen Sinema. Now, according to DHS, there are approximately 370,000 illegal immigrants already in the state, and thousands more are in mobile mobs barreling toward the U.S. border, ready to claim asylum, the so-called caravan. Now, the president throwing a wrench into their plans by announcing today a big change to the process. Let's watch.
Illegal aliens will no longer get a free pass into our country by lodging meritless claims in seeking asylum. Those who choose to break our laws and enter illegally will no longer be able to use meritless claims to gain automatic admission into our country. We will hold them.
Fantastic. I love it. Joining us now with reaction is Art Del Cueto, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council and host of the Green Line radio show, and an old friend of mine, and Pam Owens, whose nephew, Detective Michael Davis Jr., was murdered in 2014 by an illegal immigrant who was already twice deported. And Art, first to you, is this going to make a difference in the number of illegals crossing the border, especially with this caravan approaching?
I think we have a situation where we have a president that actually cares. And I think that's what's important. We have somebody that he's actually making a bigger deal out of it. He's keeping us in the limelight. He's shown that he cares about illegal immigration. And that's a huge deal because we haven't seen that before. And that's very, very welcome. I hope it stops them from coming across. But the reality is, unless you stop the catch and release, it will not stop them.
He said we're going to catch. Yeah, here we're going to catch, but we're not going to release. He said that today, which a lot of people are questioning. I want to play something for you and for Pamela. This was Jake Tapper of CNN earlier today discussing what the president said. Let's watch.
We were told by the White House that President Trump would be introducing a new proposal, a new policy when it came to asylum. That's not actually what happened. I don't know of a national security expert who says there's actually a crisis at the border.
He doesn't know of a national security expert who considers it a crisis at the border. You deal with this day in and day out. Is this a crisis with the number of people now crossing the border?
It's been a crisis for quite some time. It was a huge crisis during the Obama administration. When we started under President Trump, the numbers lowered dramatically on his rhetoric alone. I think we missed the mark, the leaders of our agency. But now we're seeing a president that is going to enforce the law. He's not bringing anything new to the table. He's just saying we need to protect our borders. I mean, what a crazy idea, right?
But it's racist, and you're Hispanic yourself. How does it feel to you to have the president called racist, anti-Latino, xenophobe, nativist? Every time he talks tough on the border and wants to do something, all those names, we just did a whole segment on it, all those names come out.
You know, when you don't have an argument anymore and you realize that you're wrong, that's what you have to say, racist. I myself, I've been called an Uncle Juan so many times, a race traitor. And why don't you stand up for your own race? It's not a racial thing. Border security has nothing to do with race. The security of our country has nothing to do with race. I owe everything to this country. And the only flag that I would fly, the only flag that I support, and the only country that I support is the United States of America. It has nothing to do with race.
A lot of blue flags in that caravan, the Honduran flag, other flags. I don't see a lot of American flags, but I see a lot of...
If you're escaping a country because they've oppressed you so badly, would you be really flying the flag of that country that oppressed you?
That's a great point, which I had not thought of. Thank you for raising it. Pamela, I want to go to you because the president has been vilified Pamela, for raising the issue of illegal immigrant crime. Outrage all day long because he's discussed cases such as that of your nephew, a police officer in California, gunned down in cold blood by Luis Bracamontes, who was twice deported and yet came back and killed and then laughed about it in court when he was being sentenced. I've got to get your take on the vilification of this president and his concern about illegal immigrant crime. Pamela.
I support everything this president is doing and has done. Our entire family are so grateful for everything that he's done. I get so angry when I listen to what people do say about him because he's not a villain. He's doing what he was hired to do, which is protect our nation, protect our people. That's what he's there for. That's what he's supposed to do. And finally, we have a president who's doing it. And the Democrats just can't stand it. They have blood on their hands. They should be ashamed of themselves. Listening to your last guest talking about we should be embarrassed. No, they should be embarrassed. And shame on them, all of them. And thank you, President Trump.
I have to say, Pamela, I am so stunned when I see people. I shouldn't be after all these years. I should just not be surprised at all. But I'm stunned when you have someone standing up for victims who are trafficked, victims of gun crime, of guns coming across the border, meth. I know you deal with the fentanyl art as well coming across the border. And in this case, a California police officer, 2 gunned down. And for him to bring this up is somehow racist? He doesn't care if it's black, white, Asian, whoever, gay, straight. It's an American killed.
Exactly.
And that's racist? Say, if you could speak right directly to the American people watching this right now, Pamela, about this toxic charge of racism that we heard all day long on CNN and MSNBC, all day long.
Well, I can tell you that take a walk in our shoes and see what it feels like, and you would understand it has nothing to do with race. I don't care what race Mr. Bracamontes was. He murdered 2 officers, as well as, I believe the man that he carjacked was a black man. So let's not talk race. It has nothing to do with race. He was a criminal, an illegal alien. He was not an illegal immigrant. He was an illegal alien in our country numerous times illegally. And he just, shame on those who get on the president for doing what he should do.
They use the charge, Art, because they do not have an answer, and they know this is a potent issue because, as you know, the president said today, if we had time to play it, women want to be safe too, Art. Let's watch that.
There's nothing political about a caravan of thousands of people and now others forming, pouring up into our country. We have no idea who they are. I don't want them in our country. And women don't want them in our country. Women want security. Men don't want them in our country, but the women do not want them. Women want security.
Safety is very important. Home, homeland, those concepts for women. As a woman, you want to be safe.
Correct.
And not everybody's a criminal. A lot of people just want to come and work. We all know that. But sadly, that hasn't been the case. Even right near here, Mesa, Arizona, we've had a big problem in Mesa, Arizona. Grant Ronenbeck shot in the face.
But you don't know. That's the thing. If you don't vet these people properly, you don't know. You're here in Arizona. Close to 40% of all the drugs that enter this country illegally come through here. And we're coming up on elections. Wow. And I think it's very important that people are going to realize when you go to that poll, do you want border security? 40% of drugs come through Arizona. Do you want border security, or do you want somebody that doesn't care about our borders?
Cinema is not good on the border. She's terrible on the borders. McSally is the only person you can vote for. Absolutely. Thank you so much to both of you, Pamela and Art. Great to have you on, as always. Pam, thanks for being brave and brave enough to share that story tonight. We will never forget. When we come back, the pollsters, they have it all covered for us. You do not want to miss this next segment. Stay right there. Only 5 days to go until the midterm elections, and tonight we want to highlight some of the races that Democrats once thought were sure bets. Now it's anyone's guess. Joining me now to discuss is Tom Bevan. He's the co-founder and publisher of Real Clear Politics, and Doug Schoen, a Democratic pollster. All right, guys. Tom, let's start with you. John Tester out in Montana, he was sailing to re-election, but tell us about some of the dirty tricks that have his challenger, Republican Matt Rosendale, back in the hunt tonight.
Well, we did have this situation with the Libertarian candidate. He didn't drop out of the race, but he endorsed Rosendale and threw his support behind Rosendale. Now, the Libertarian wasn't getting a lot necessarily support in the polls, but even a small shift in this race. We've got Tester up about 4 points in our Real Clear Politics average. The problem is we've only had one poll, two polls in October. One of them was completed 2 weeks ago. So we literally have almost no data in Montana to tell us what's going on there. It seems like it's a close race. Trump has obviously been there. And this could be one of those surprises on election night, purely because we don't have really good data on what's going on. It hasn't been polled very heavily at all.
All right, Doug, I want to go to you. Down in Florida, things are interesting there because it looked like Gillum kind of was beginning to build this big momentum. Then we started hearing more about this corruption, the getting bribes, potentially the FBI investigation, now stuff with anti-Israel groups. And now his lead has been cut in half. And obviously Trump's spending a lot of time there as well. What's going on?
Well, look, Florida is a very close toss-up state in both the governor's race, Laura, and the Senate race. And you're exactly right. Gillum had opened a double-digit lead. Since then, we've heard a lot more about a corruption scandal, potentially during his administration, travel, gifts. And there's also the issue of the role of the president trying to mobilize voters for DeSantis, who'd been slipping until recently. I see this as a very close race, slight advantage to Gillum, but no more.
I want to go now to Missouri, where Claire McCaskill, guys, is in a very interesting place. She made a comment about Donald Trump's border security policy, and specifically was talking about, I think, the wall and other things. Let's watch what she said.
The impression he's giving Missourians that somehow the Democrats are in favor of our border being overrun. I am not. I support the president 100% doing what he needs to do to secure the border.
Tom, McCaskill's like a border hawk. I mean, she's going to be wearing a MAGA hat soon, riding the border. What's going on there?
So Claire McCaskill is the Lucy with the football for Republicans. Every cycle they think they can get her and remove her and kick her out of office, and she always survives. This year seems a little bit different, and that comment is one of the reasons why. She's also running ads saying, look, with people on camera saying, look, she's not one of those crazy Democrats like Bernie and the others. This race definitely has a different feel to it. The polls are very, very close. Our Real Clear Politics average has Josh Hawley up 2 points. But this race is definitely close. You can't really count out Claire McCaskill. She's a hard campaigner. She's a good campaigner. She's obviously doing what she needs to do to try and win this race. But this one feels different. I think she might end up on the short side 5 days from now.
All right, we just saw that graphic come up on Trump's approval rating for the economy. Great news for him on the economy. It's a 51% approval rating. And his numbers in both Florida and in Tennessee with Marsha Blackburn, very good. But I want to move up to New Jersey for a moment, Doug, because Bob Menendez is another person who has been just mired in various scandals. But he's still holding on to a lead over Bob Hugin. Could that perhaps change?
Yeah, it could. And Laura, the only thing that is tethering Bob Menendez up at this point is the fact that the state is so very, very Democratic, and as long as I can remember, going back over 20 years, it's been represented by Democrats in the Senate. That being said, the lead in the polls that I've seen is down to somewhere between 4 and 6 points. So it's a toss-up, according to Charlie Cook, could go either way, but the Democratic nature of the state makes Bob Menendez ever so slightly a favorite.
All right, Tom, we're out of time, but I ask you a quick question. Could it be that in some of these polls, people are actually afraid to say they're going to vote for the Republican? You find that sometimes in workplaces are afraid to say, I'm a conservative. Is there something about pollsters that people might not always be truthful, or are they pretty straight with the pollsters?
Well, there was an effect that we found in 2016 where Trump's numbers were higher actually when the poll was conducted, was a robocall, was an IVF poll, which means that people, instead of actually talking to a live pollster, if it was, press 1 if you support Donald Trump, Trump actually got slightly higher rates in those types of polls as opposed to talking to live pollsters. So there is a bit of that effect. We may see it come back here in 2018, but it's very hard to sort of quantify by each individual poll.
Laura, Democrats like polls more than Republicans and answer them in slightly higher numbers, which affects the ultimate results as well.
Can't wait. Guys, thank you so much. Great insights. All right, now we have been reviewing the hottest and most effective ads this election cycle. But we want to bring in someone, an advertising guru, old Frank Luntz. He's going to break them down for us. Stay there. A good campaign ad can completely change the course of an entire race. And there's one man who's studied their effectiveness for years. Joining us now is Republican pollster and ad guru Frank Luntz. Frank, great to see you. I know you're in Georgia. I'm here in Arizona. And I want to start with an ad from President Trump. Let's watch.
When I look at the way things are, it reminds me how far we've come.
These numbers, they are depressingly weak.
The punch to the gut, the economy is growing even more slowly than we thought.
But things are starting to change. There's more opportunity and security to invest in the ones that matter. But this could all go away if we don't remember what we came from and choose the right future.
Frank, what do you think about that one?
It's clearly a partisan ad, but to my surprise, in the testing that we just completed, that ad was celebrated. That Democrats responded almost as favorably as Republicans because it dealt with an emotional appeal that the public wants. A mom and her daughter, desperate for things to get better, and people actually do. Democrats even give Trump credit for improving the economy. So that was right on the mark. It's one of those rare partisan ads that are effective.
All right, I want to play an ad from Brian Kemp in Georgia. Stacey Abrams getting some help from Oprah today and Will Ferrell earlier this week. But let's watch this.
I'm Brian Kemp. I'm so conservative. I blow up government spending. I own guns that no one's taking away. My chainsaw's ready to rip up some regulations. I got a big truck, just in case I need to round up criminal illegals and take them home myself. Yep, I just said that. If you want a politically incorrect conservative, that's me.
Okay, how does that do? How's that one do?
That fantastic among Republicans, awful among Democrats, and actually people who are independent wonder, is this guy serious or is he a good old boy? Now, all of these ads are going to be shown Monday night on HBO and Vice News. We have tested over 250 of the political ads, and that one among Republicans is in the top 10. But Democrats, when they look at it, they say no way.
Okay, let's move on to, all right. Now let's move on to Bob Hugin, because I'm going to stake it on Hugin beating Menendez. I might be wrong, but I have hope for New Jersey. I love the state of New Jersey. It's corrupt, but it's a beautiful state in many ways. Okay, so I want it to get better. So I want Hugin to win. So let's watch this ad.
Perfect.
These are difficult times. Things are better for us than they were for our mothers, grandmothers. Now we're going through another change, and it will make life better for her. Reading this sworn FBI affidavit containing allegations Bob Menendez traveled abroad to have sex with underage prostitutes, one thing became clear. I'll never be able to explain a vote for him to her.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Brilliant.
What do you think about that one?
There's another word to describe. It is brilliant because there's a special relationship between a mother and a daughter, and this is one of those places where the Me Too movement is alive, and it's alive on behalf of the Republicans or against the Democrats. I believe that there's a series of ads right now that may cost Bob Menendez the election, and that is one of them right there.
All right. Thanks so much, Frank. Fantastic. Democrats used to claim, by the way, that when it comes to dark money and dirty tricks, well, they're totally above board. It's all the Republicans who do that stuff. But tonight, we have information showing that they are intently engaged in both this election season, and we're going to show you next.